welcome or welcome back to Life on the Fringe. Today we're going to be reviewing two videos from the channel ClassicallyAbby. I know other YouTubers have made commentary videos about her channel, so I know it's not an original idea. But the reason I felt inclined to review her channel was because, as some of you may know, I was recently, I got married legally last summer in a pandemic wedding, and if you want to learn more about that, you can click here. I think it's actually over here. Whatever. But I'm also getting married, like, sacramentally in my Catholic church this year. So if you want to see more of me trying to plan that, you can click up here. But as if you're like searching for weddings on like YouTube, like she kept popping up in my ads, like because I was watching channels like Jamie Wolfer or like wedding dress hauls or wedding hauls, like trying to get ideas for my wedding, and these like ads of her videos would show up on my home screen. And they would say that they're ads. Like, it wasn't just, like, in my recommendations. It was, like, an ad. And I thought that was kind of strange. Because I had never really seen that before. But the advertisements were about, you know, how to find a husband, tips for marriage, how to be a good wife, you know, sort of like prescriptive sort of titles that I didn't feel like clicking on, because you can tell from the titles like what her position is, and it's different than mine. And it's not that I wasn't willing to listen, but it's not what I was looking for to like help me, you know, figure out my wedding. But now I have some breathing room, so I wanted to look at some videos from her channel and react to them, because she creates this narrative about feminists being prescriptive without like looking in the mirror and seeing how she is prescriptive. And we're going to talk about that using two videos as an example. So without further ado, let's jump into it. The first video I wanted to talk about is titled, "Feminists Want You to Stay Home." And she says in the video that she's not talking about individual feminists, but she's talking about feminist ideology. It wouldn't be responding to her argument to just say that I, as a feminist, don't mind if you choose to stay home. I think that's a very valid option, and to me, feminism is about allowing women to choose how they want to live their lives. So I wanted to address more of her actual argument, rather than just, I don't believe that's how most feminists feel, although some might. But I do want to think about this as a framework of feminism. So she talks about how she felt really guilty that after grad school, she decided to prioritize her family and her community and her faith over her career. And that meant kind of stepping back from the career path that she was on, and this happened after she got married. And she says she felt extremely guilty. She said, "I felt bad, and I felt so wrong." And I do feel bad for her, because, you know, I think, you know, like that's kind of hard. It's probably does. Like, anytime that you want to change your life path, whether it's going from like a career to a more family-oriented path, or even just switching between, like, I thought I was going to do grad school of education, now I'm doing law school, like, trying to figure out that makes me like feel bad. Or like right now, I'm working on my master's degree, Stan is working, and that makes me feel bad because I want to be contributing to our household income. So, but I don't have the time for it with my program and my thesis. So, you know, for me, that makes me feel bad. So I just think that it could be a personal anecdote, but I don't know that it's specifically because of this like pressure that anybody is putting on her. Maybe it's a pressure that she put on herself to be this, you know, modern careerist woman. Also, I think that we have to take into account that, you know, you've pursued a graduate degree. As someone who's pursuing a graduate degree and then pursuing law school, that costs a lot of money. Whether or not like she paid for her college or her parents paid for her college, I don't know. But after amassing that amount of debt, or even if you pay it outright, like losing that amount of money, there is a guilt to make the money back. Because you've invested your time, you've invested your finances, you've invested, you know, who your friends are, you've probably met through college, who your network is, like all of that has to be shifted whether you change career paths or whether you choose to stay at home. And that is a guilt that can come from being a stay-at-home mom, but I don't think is associated necessarily with feminism. And I do think this is relevant to her argument because she feels like she was trapped after her education. And I would feel trapped if I chose to stay at home because we have invested as a couple like money into my education. I've invested personally into my bachelor's degree, you know, time, energy, money. So I would feel bad if like I was like, well, we just threw away, you know, X amount of dollars and X amount of years and, you know, whatever. Like, not saying you shouldn't do it or it's not worth it if being a stay-at-home mom is what's going to make you feel the most successful and the most fulfilled, then maybe it is worth it. But I can see why you would feel a little bit bad. I'm not saying that you should, but I could see why that thought might be there. But the way she relates this to feminism, I should address. So she talks about that there's this pressure that because people fought for it before you, like women fought for being in the workforce before you, that there's a pressure for you now to be a part of the workforce. I could see that, but I wouldn't necessarily equate that with feminism wants you to stay home, like wants you to like be, like doesn't want you to stay at home. Like it's more that as a result of feminism, it's now more the norm that people are in two-income houses, and there might be an economic aspect of needing two incomes, or there could be this sort of like you want to have the same lifestyle as your parents, and to achieve that you might need two incomes. Like there are pressures, but I wouldn't say it's that feminists want you to stay home so much as there's a new cultural norm and you feel a pressure to be inside of the cultural norm. But as a feminist, I think that we kind of stand on the ground that you shouldn't have to be a part of the cultural norm. If you want to go into the workforce and that's the norm now in America, then you can. If you don't want to, then you don't have to. Like, if you want to do part-time, that's fine. You want kids, you don't want kids, that's fine. Again, it's like not really feminists are putting the pressure there. It's that the course of history is maybe putting some pressure there in a way. The other thing is, it's hard for me to take that argument seriously, that, you know, feminists want you to stay home, when from her channel there's a lot of pressuring on how women should behave. There is, like, the next video we're going to look at is about women shouldn't hook up. So it's weird to me that, you know, feminists are controlling people when she herself is trying to, or feminists are trying to influence people when she herself is also trying to influence people on how to act. So I just don't see how someone who is actively pushing for a specific life path for all women can say to, like, feminists who at their core are pushing for more opportunities for women across the spectrum, how that argument can be made. The other thing that she talks about, and I've seen this in several of her videos before, is this, that like feminism isn't true. There is no longer like oppression in America for women. She says it's proven not to be true, and that her argument for this is that many women choose not to go to the top of their careers and not to break the glass ceiling, not because they can't, but because they don't want to, because they're prioritizing their family and their kids. And that could be true for like some women. And maybe in her experience, she's never faced workplace harassment or workplace discrimination, but that's something that I have had as a woman in my life, and know many people who have had that happen to in the workplace. So I just feel like, obviously my evidence is anecdotal, but she didn't provide any studies either. So I just think that this idea that there's no oppression at all anymore is kind of wrong, especially if we're looking at like instances of violence against women compared to like domestic violence against women or sexual assault violence against women versus men, and that's men to women versus women to men, not including like men to men or women to women. So that's something like just to consider in general as a cultural thing that I think still needs to be addressed today. Even aside from that, feminism is not only about female oppression, it's also about male oppression. You know, that men currently, like many men feel that they can't express their like their femininity or their emotions, and they put all of their like success into just their career, and they don't look at it from a broader perspective. I think that's something, and like they feel like they can't be nurses, they feel like they can't be stay-at-home dads, they can't wear skirts. Like, these are all things that feminists care about. It isn't just about like making it so that women can do things that men can do, but it's also about making men be able to do things that women can do. And this is incredibly relevant to her argument because she also makes the claim that men and women are different, and having children and valuing your family is the most natural thing in the world to do, and that like men and women aren't the same. Men are more driven towards economic success. I would say that's more of a result of history being the way that it is, that men were the primary breadwinners and that's how they found their role inside their family, and that's how they got their value in it. Less because naturally they are just all of them careerists. And she does say, like, in fairness to her, she doesn't think that every woman should be a stay-at-home mom. She talks about how her mom was like this like very high-level professional and still was able to like prioritize family and faith over her career. But I just think there's many parts of this that made me feel that it was misrepresenting what feminism stands for, and kind of looking at the arguments from, like, you had an opinion before and you didn't like listen to any arguments from the other side before making the post. Whereas I've tried to address all of the points I think she's brought up, and where I think some of those, you know, could be wrong or could be right. But regardless, again, like, if she wants to be at home more now, I feel like that's fine. That doesn't make you like less of a woman. But now we turn to the more spicy video, because she makes this claim that like feminists are pushing women into doing specific things. I think that's funny because when the burkini ban came out in France, many feminists were opposed to the burkini ban because they felt that women choose how they are empowered, and some women can be empowered through modesty where others are not. So, and the burkini ban was like led by you know, a lot of conservatives as a way to like squelch religious expression. And I just think it's weird to say that feminists are the ones trying to dictate what you do with your life. Especially when she has posted a video titled, Ladies, Stop Hooking Up. All caps. A Jewish wife's message about sex. So let's dive into that. Stop hooking up. I think we could end the video here because that's a directive. Her argument about feminists pushing women to stay home is not like that individuals are telling her to stay home. It's that there's just a pressure to stay home, and that makes it difficult. Versus this directive of stop hooking up. So let's start the video.
Should stop hooking up. If you're a woman in 2020, you've heard you need to be empowered. You do you. The patriarchy is holding you back.
I think we need a male perspective on this video. Stan.
What?
I need your opinion on this video. So, I want a male perspective.
Okay.
On this video.
Sleep with who you want, when you want. But this is a bunch of lies. Maybe you want to hook up with a guy because you care about him and you don't want to let him get away. Sleeping with him is the easiest way for him to take you and your feelings for granted. Holding out will tell you whether he's willing to wait and will tell him that you're worth waiting for.
In the circumstance that she's describing, where you feel like you're losing the guy and then you're like, okay, well, maybe if I just have sex with him, he'll stay. Yeah, like, that is not a good reason to have sex with a person. I would agree with that.
Not a good reason to stay in a relationship either. Oh, they're putting out, so...
Right. So, that I agree with,
right.
That scenario, but this idea of willing to wait, like you're willing to wait for, I don't think that hooking up with people makes you less valuable, nor do I think it's necessarily the best way to form a sustained relationship. You could get it out of the way and then it's a non-issue and you can focus on the other parts of a relationship that matter, like, you know, your values and whatnot. However, to someone like Abbey, who believes you should wait till marriage, it is a value indicator of the guy's value if he's willing to wait the way that you want to wait. So in that sense, yeah, if you don't just sleep with somebody and give up your values because that's what the guy wants. You should have the same value. The values should align. But if you and him are both okay with hooking up, I don't think that necessarily hooking up with them is going to determine if he stays or not. And if it does, maybe his values don't align with yours because he has a more conservative perspective on women than you have.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to have sex with a guy you really like and can see having a future with. Hooking up with him could mask all of the problems in your relationship that would lead to your eventual breakup and just prolong the inevitable. Sex will only muddy the waters and prevent you from making a clear-headed decision.
What?
I don't even know how to respond.
All the sex is distracting me.
It's hiding the real problems in our relationship. We just fight and then we have sex and then everything, we just forget why we were upset. What I have seen happen is that you get into a fight with the person and then the sex stops until the fight gets fixed. That's been my typical experience.
And fixing that fight might be that somebody leaves the relationship, and that isn't, it's in and of itself a value indicator.
You know, sex is important in relationships, and the frequency that you want to have sex and the value you place on it and your exclusivity are all value things that you want to figure out. And I'm not saying you have to sleep with people before you get married at all, but those are kind of discussions that you would want to have or could achieve having sex before marriage.
Maybe you want to have sex with someone because you're lonely, and it will fill up the time until you meet the right person. Having sex with the wrong person is the easiest way to prolong your loneliness since you'll be too distracted to find Mr. Right.
That's a dangerous thing to do, to get into a relationship with somebody just because you're lonely, because they will have like this power dynamic over you and your loneliness, and you might stay in a relationship that isn't fulfilling, is making you unhappy. But I think that's independent of the sex factor. Hooking up with people, I feel like, is potentially less dangerous than just dating somebody because you're lonely.
Communication seems to be her challenge. She's avoiding communicating about things. So this STD scare, this pregnancy scare, all of this stuff can be addressed with clear communication about your stance with your partner or what have you. Are you on the pill? Do you have an STD? Let me see the paperwork. Things like that. There's levels that you can get to. And also before, when she was talking about like muddying the water with sex can also be the gateway towards conversations where you get to learn more about your partner and talk to them and discover the real value. So she's playing this guessing game of what is it that they truly value. I don't want to talk about the sex. I don't want to have the sex because I don't want that to be part of the communication.
Right, and you could find out from like after you get married that sex is all they really care about. Like it becomes like something that they really value that maybe you don't, or you really value but they don't. You know, and you won't have known that.
Right.
Like,
right, you won't have had that dialogue. And it seems like Abbey wants to live in a world where all that dialogue is implied.
Now let's get the record straight. I'm not saying sex is bad. In fact, sex is wonderful. You know how you crave ice cream, but if you ate ice cream all the time, your healthy lifestyle would go out the window? It's the same with sex. That healthy lifestyle you want disappears.
I still eat ice cream.
I eat Chips Ahoy cookies every day. Every day I eat Chips Ahoy cookies. That's not an analogy. This is a true statement. I've heard this argument with this phrase, I love you. Like, some people don't say I love you to the people that they love. Like I wouldn't say it to you, you wouldn't say it to me. Unless it was a special occasion. Because saying it so often lowers its meaning.
I used to have that philosophy, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't feel that at all. Like, I feel like I need to say it all the time. A, because like I'm thinking it all the time, so why would I be burying it down, you know? And B, like you just never know when the last time you're going to see somebody is. And like my biggest fear is that I won't have said I love you before, like if we part ways, like before we meet back up and they like pass away. Like, obviously that's different like than sex, but the idea that something just is lowered in value because there's more of it, like gardens are more pretty the more flowers they have and the bigger they are. Like,
sex is a flower. Get a bouquet of them. Get 2. She says sex is ice cream. You can't have it all the time. But you can have ice cream sometimes. You can have ice cream. I understand she's like going for this overindulgence thing, but she is going in the reverse direction of like, don't eat ice cream, period.
Right. Like, yes, I agree. You're right. Her analogy is that you can have ice cream sometimes, but if you have too much ice cream, your healthy lifestyle is over.
Yeah, dude, I'm having no ice cream. I'm having no ice cream, Abby. Can I have some, please?
Right. Versus, like, the correlation to that analogy would be, have it sometimes when you feel like it's worth it, but don't make it, like, the most important thing in your life.
Which I agree with.
Right.
Yeah.
So, good analogy, but, like, doesn't work for you.
When you wait, you respect yourself and your body enough to share it with someone on a healthy timeline. You're just waiting to have that ice cream until the moment is right. So listen up, ladies. Let's be classic. Stop looking up. It might be harder now, but it will be better in the long run. Thank you so much for watching today.
No, it's not ice cream. Sex is a tool.
Right, it's a tool at the beginning, it's ice cream at the end. Again, I'm not saying that you should have sex before marriage, or would try to, like, no one should be forcing anybody to have sex before they want to.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it's wrong to basically say that if you're having sex, you automatically feel certain ways about it, and that it's sending out specific messages to your partners, and that you are like missing out on the good guys, because some of the good guys want sex too. You know,
Good size? Did you say good size?
Good guys. No, also maybe that.
Good size.
But I guess if you only have one partner, you know, you don't know what you're missing. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. I will link both of these videos if you do want to watch them in the description below. And if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. That doesn't necessarily mean that you agree. Again, put your thoughts below. And if you want to see more of our content, it's not usually this political, click subscribe and ding the bell button to know when we post. Bye!